Okay, everyone, my name is Marianne Dunbar. I'm the Skills Manager at the Data Lab Academy. Welcome to this Data Lab community event on how to build a career in data and AI. If you wouldn't mind muting your mic as you arrive into the session, that would be really, really helpful. So the Data Lab is Scotland's Innovation Centre for Data and AI, and in 2021 we launched the Data Lab community, and this event is one of a series of events that the Data Lab community has been running to inform our community on what it's like working in different sectors of the economy. Today we are really, really lucky to have 4 panelists, all of whom work in data and AI and in the public sector. Now, the public sector, according to the 2022 Scottish Government survey and ONS survey, accounts for 22% of total employment in Scotland. That is a huge number. So there are lots of opportunities out there for all of you, whether you're students looking for your first break, or your first career move, or for anyone that's working in any sector to find out about the richness and diversity of opportunities that there are in this sector. So round the panel, some of the industries or some of the sectors we've got represented are Scottish Government, health and social care, heritage and environmental organisations. So people are still pinging in. So thank you all to our fantastic panelists for joining us today. And I think the best way for us to get started is to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and let you all know what they do and how they arrived at where they've arrived at today, what their academic background is and what their job is about. So I'm going to go straight into this because time is short. Ruth, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name's Ruth. Thank you for having me here. So I'm a Marine Data Advisor at Nature Scot. And if you don't know, Nature Scot is Scotland's leading nature organisation, and we inspire and influence others to manage our natural resources responsibly. So our teams go out on survey to collect information to underpin marine protection, and also our casework staff advise on offshore energy applications like offshore wind and tidal turbines. So basically what I do is I give data support for science and evidence in marine. So I do marine data management, systems of requirement for commissioned research. I help with data access and GIS tools, and I give input on system upgrades for projects to make sure that they fulfill our needs. Before I started with Nature Scot, I did 5 years of development projects. And by development, I mean applying for planning permission and writing and coordinating environmental impact assessments. I have a PhD and a BSc in marine science, and I'm a practitioner member for the Institute for Environmental Management and Assessment.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And I think it's worth saying to everyone here today that all 4 of our panelists are members of the Data Lab community, which is fantastic. Can I hand over to you now, Kelsey?
Yeah, hi, my name is Kelsey. I'm a data manager for the Edinburgh Transplant Centre, which is part of NHS Lothian. My day-to-day roles generally involve a lot of data cleaning, a lot of data wrangling, pulling out data to fulfill queries that the consultants and nurses give us for research and audit purposes, which has led to a few publications and change in work practices as well. I've also done some courses from the Data Lab. I've done a PDA in data science with funding from Data Skills for Work. That was with Code Division. And I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry. So, yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself and then unmuted myself and then muted myself again. Neha.
Hi there, I am Neha and I am data analyst for a HEPMA project with NHS, which covers 6 regional health board, which is collectively called North of Scotland. So HEPMA is hospital electronic prescribing and medicine administration. So in a nutshell, it is it is digitalizing the process, how we prescribe and administer medicine within hospitals. My main job role involves understanding the HEPMA database, which is a very complex database, and exploiting the data that has been collected for various analysis and interpretation for both regional and board level, and interpret and communicate the highly complex information to clinical, managerial, and other staff of NHS to take informed decisions. And the day-to-day job involves obviously like data cleaning, data wrangling, a lot of codes, statistics, and everything that is involved. Education-wise, I'm an engineer by background, and I have done a master's in health data science, obviously in partnership with Data Lab that has sponsored me for the master's. And I've got an extensive corporate experience, including the data information and data management and project planning. And that's from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alice?
Hi, so yeah, I'm Alice and I work at the Scottish Government. I am a reproducible analytical pipeline developer, which is the wordiest title ever, but can be shortened to RAP developer. So RAP's an approach to analysis that kind of focuses on reproducibility and quality and efficiency, and it's kind of centres around using open source software. So in Scottish Government we use R mostly, and version control as well. And yeah, these things aren't really mainstream in the Scottish Government at least. So my role is to support other analysts and statisticians in the government to improve the way that they do analysis and use RAP to improve those processes. I also kind of develop guidance and tools to help people with that. So I've recently developed an R package for kind of styling charts and creating accessible charts. So that's my job at the moment. Before that, I worked at Public Health Scotland for 4.5 years as an analyst there. So that was more kind of topic based. So I worked on delayed discharges and palliative care, kind of releasing publications, statistical publications. And yeah, education, I left school and went to Stirling Uni to study maths. And then I did a master's at Glasgow in statistics. And then I went to work at Public Health Scotland. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much. Now, I'm just going to kick off with some questions. At the end of the session, there will be an opportunity for all of you in the audience to ask questions, and we'd ask you just to raise your hand or pop your question into the chat. So Ruth, I'd like to go to you first. I mean, what you do just sounds so inspiring. How did you arrive at where you are now?
Yeah, so deciding to go work for Nature Scot was a combination of factors. I really like the technical pipeline of data that I was working with on my development projects. So we'd go into the field and we'd collect data, and then I'd cleanse it in Python, and then I'd do computer simulations, and then I'd explain the results in reports, and then I'd present them in my applications. So I really liked that process. However, as I progressed as a project manager, I was moving away from the technical aspect of the work. So the job at Nature Scot kind of let me get back into that, but also at the pay grade that I was at before. So it was getting that balance between being able to move between sectors. So going from industry in a very development client-facing role in consultancy into the public sector into data, because I'm not trained in data. I've learned it as I've gone. So that was a really good opportunity for me. And I won't lie, the benefits in the public sector and in Nature Scot especially are amazing. They're really attractive. So the weekly hours, the annual leave, the sickness support, the pension, that was all part of that decision for me as well.
That sounds amazing. I'd just like to ask a similar question, Neha, because you've had quite a long experience in, I think it was the oil and gas industry. So what Is there a contrast in the working culture of you working in the private sector and the public sector? I think you touched on that a little bit, Ruth, but it would just be interesting to hear how you see the differences.
Definitely, there exist differences and commonalities between two sectors, and since I've worked in both, I have first-hand experience. So I'll talk about the differences first, and according to me, the first and the foremost difference would be the pay. So private can pay you substantially more compared to public because there's not as much of a compensation regulation in private as we have in public, because they are so established pay plans and has to be adhered across the organization. The second could be the recruitment process itself. In private, it's very quick and swift, but it can take a while in public sector, which can be anywhere from 2 months, 3 months, or even more. Obviously because of the bureaucracy and the red tape that exists. But having said that, there's a lot of benefit that public sector has to offer to its staff. And the first that comes in my mind is the stability of job. So unless there is a big financial crunch or a major budget cut, your job is almost guaranteed. The second, I think there's extensive benefits package that public sector has to offer to its staff. That is very good advantage. There are pensions and retirement plan where they can match up to 10% of your share. So these are quite startling difference between the two sectors. Talking about the commonalities, I think the day-to-day work of if either you work in a public sector or a public or a private sector, they are same. Like you have to have your work schedules, meetings, deadlines. So those are same.
Thank you. Kelsey, I'm just wondering, starting a new job can be really, really daunting, especially if it's your first job post-graduation, and there will be a lot in this audience of people that are looking for that first break. So how well supported were you in those early days?
Of just getting a job or just starting the job? Yeah, so getting a job, it is tough. I was out of university for a few months. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So if any of you out there feel the same, that's perfectly normal. Initially, I thought about going into lab work, and then Christmas came around and I was like, right, I'm going to widen my net. And I saw this job opening for data assistant, and I just thought, you know what, it sounds interesting. It's numbers, it's our transplant centre, it's pretty cool. And I applied and very fortunately got the job. And throughout the sort of induction process, and you had touched on it a little bit, it can take a bit of time from the point of getting that job offer to actually starting the job. I think it took me about 2 months from interview to starting. But throughout the process, I was kept informed of, how things were going, if I needed PVG checks, which you do need for some of the roles in the public sector. So yeah, I was very fortunate to have that team support already there, even well before I was in the door. But yeah, it is tough, but public sector, I think, did well to keep us supported when I actually got the offer.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. And for everyone in the audience, if you are a member of the Data Lab community, we do have a mentor group. So if you're looking for someone to help you, as you say, for Kelsey, it can be daunting getting that, those first few weeks where you're not really sure where you are. There is support out there. Alice, it just sounds like your job sounds amazing. How have you got there? What's what do you think made you stand out and help you get your current job?
I think from describing it, it's quite a specialist job. The role that I'm in at the moment, like it's quite specific and it's got a kind of specific ask. When I worked, when I first went to Public Health Scotland, as an information analyst, and that's like a kind of generic job title. So lots of analysts have that same job title and description, but they can be working in different areas and different teams. And I think getting my current job that's quite specific, having that breadth of experience from the kind of generic role where I'd kind of moved about within Public Health Scotland and got a bit of a taste of lots of different teams and experiences, I think that really helped to get into the specific role I'm in. I think as well, Kelsey touched on that too, like when I left uni, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I sometimes joke that I still don't know what I want to do. I'm getting closer, but you know, it's still, who knows what's going to happen. And I think, yeah, having that kind of experience, wide variety of experience at PHS kind of helped me hone in on what it was I enjoyed the most and what it was that I was actually looking for. I think as well, with publics, from my experience in public sector anyway, your kind of first job is kind of foot in the door to, you know, find, because the organisations I've worked in have been quite large, that there's so many different roles you can do and different places you can go, and kind of that first step kind of opens up a lot of doors, and kind of learn a lot about what's possible and what options there are to you.
So just going to follow up on that. Have you got any tips for people that are just about to start a job, or, you know, like those first months? I mean, any, you know, how can they grow into the job and battle with that sort of insecurity that we all feel in new environments?
Yeah. I was thinking back to the very first team that I was in when I started at Public Health Scotland, and somebody told me that not to worry, because it can take at least 6 months to bed in to a new job. And at the time I thought, oh, he's just saying that to be nice and make me feel better. But really, like, even internal moves between teams, I've found that to be true. For every new job that I've started, it really does take at least 6 months to feel like, you know, you have moments where you feel like you know what you're doing. So I think before that, try and keep that in mind. And, you know, it's difficult to start, but you will get there. I know this is probably a bit cliche as well, but there's no such thing as a silly question. Like, ask lots of questions. If somebody has a problem with you asking questions, that's their problem, that's not yours. Ask lots of questions. One other thing as well, like, say yes if people offer to like have an informal chat or just say hello, welcome, kind of try to include you in things. I'm still really good friends with a lot of people that I met on my very first day because somebody took me to lunch with them and introduced me to people. And I think with things being more online now, it's a bit harder, but, you know, like, set up a Teams call or whatever just to say hello and introduce yourself, and make those connections in your team, even if it's people you're not directly working with. Yeah,
good idea. Don't want to be lonely at home. So just thinking about, Ruth, your career and how it's progressing, what opportunities are there at Nature Scott for that career progression and that movement forward, or for you to shape the way your career will develop from this point?
Yeah, so I guess I'm an interesting person for you to talk to about career progression, because I guess there are a lot of people, especially in data, who follow like a classical approach, like you go study data science and then you go be a data analyst and then you do it. I've not done that. So I've worked in academia, I've worked in industry, and now the public sector, and I'm an environmental professional working with data. So my career has definitely been more non-linear. And also I work with a lot of people who are very multidisciplinary. So I also need to keep up with relevant news in the environmental sector to help me understand the context and the direction for the data work that I'm doing. So I do need to keep up to date with the data work, but then also the environmental work that goes along with that. And I think that's very important for whatever job you're doing. You're not just doing data in a vacuum. You're working in a sector, so you need to understand both parts of it. So part of me shaping my career and creating opportunities for myself isn't only getting involved in the data lab community and doing things relevant to data. Like, I'm also a professional member of an environmental and sustainability body, and that has a lot of information and cross-sectoral networking opportunities and ideas for creating new and innovative opportunities for yourself. I think it is really important to create opportunities for yourself. I think it's really rare that I ever just get handed something. I need to put myself in a position for opportunities to become available, and being proactive is definitely part of that. So join the professional bodies, read as widely as you can, attend webinars, take part in sectoral events, meet people, volunteer to attend meetings, engage with people on social media, even if you don't like going in person. I'm not saying every opportunity will be amazing. Sometimes I'm sitting there after I've committed to doing something and I'm like, oh my, this is not what I imagined it was going to be. But you commit, you show up, and you learn from it, and then you move on, and then that helps you build the skill of knowing what to say no to, which is also a very good skill. Yeah, so it's about opening yourself up to those opportunities and not closing doors. Yeah.
Thank you, that's some good advice there. So Neha, the National Health Service is a huge organisation. So how do you find out about training? How responsive is your department in helping you find the specific training that you need? And it would just be interesting to know, because you've done an MSc, you know, so you've got a technical background. So how much focus was there on using that, you know, technology and acquiring new skills, you know, to be effective in your job?
Yeah, as you already said, I've got the basic data knowledge of SQL, R, Python that I've learned during my MSc. So when I got into the job, the initial days it was all about how to implement this skill to the real life data and scenarios. So working with data during MSc is totally and very different to working with real life, especially health data, because it is very complex, and you need to learn it, and you need to grow your experience every single day. And I think I'm very lucky enough to land into a job coming from a private sector to public sector, not knowing it at all. The teammates and the project mates were very supportive every time, and every question that I asked, I had like answers right away, and everybody was ready to help me. Within NHS, there's a body called NES that stands for NHS Education for Scotland. So it's a body for education. It's a training and education body, which is responsible for deploying and delivering training throughout the public sector. And they are doing fantastic job. We have weekly Teams meeting where you can actually propose what you want to learn and what you're looking forward to, and what will help you enhance your skills and help you with your day-to-day workings. We have e-learnings, which is called Turas, and it is actually open to everybody, and they can log in and register, and they can learn anything they want. And like, you have to register and do the courses, and it keeps the track of how many courses you have done. It also keeps track of what is essential for.
Oops, we've lost you. You've muted. Don't know how that happened.
Can you hear me?
You're back. You're back. Yes,
okay,
you're back.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I was saying, there are e-learning processes as well, where people, not just within NHS, but across, whoever wants to learn about the courses that has been professionally designed, they can learn by registering Turas. And Turas is actually, it can keep track of all your learnings and all the courses that you've done, and especially those courses that is essential for the job role you're doing. So it's quite, I would say, very structured, and it's very, like, people are there to help you out, and it's very well communicated.
Oh, that's great to hear. But Alice, what about the sort of skills that you're demonstrating here today? Communication skills and management, and all those additional skills that we know are really important for us all at every stage, but perhaps become even more important as you start to develop responsibilities and move up the ladder.
Yeah, I don't think, in Scottish Government anyway, I've not found there's a massive amount of formal kind of training for those things. I'm going to a training later in the year called Think on Your Feet, which I think will be quite good. So they come up every now and again, and I found like my manager is very supportive for me to go in those when they do come up. But I think the biggest thing that kind of helps me develop those skills is working within my team. They're very supportive. Very, like, we have weekly team meetings. I think having, like, presenting your work and talking about your work at those meetings is kind of built up my confidence to then go outside of my team and present. And I'm generally encouraged to present my work to lots of different people and outside of the government as well. So I think mostly I've kind of developed those skills by doing. But yeah, they're really supportive. There's somebody else in my team run a kind of workshop recently just for our team to kind of test things out and get feedback, and it was like a real safe space to kind of work on that kind of thing. So, and I found that in previous roles as well. I think that's really great. For management, so I don't manage anybody at the moment, but I have in previous roles, and I must admit the management training's has been a bit non-existent for me, or not very, not really useful. But I think I've leaned on like colleagues and friends who are in similar situations to kind of support in that, and talk about problems and kind of share experiences and things. And I've always had supportive management. It's just kind of the formal training that I've found hasn't been great, but there's always friendly people around me to talk to. Yeah.
So Kelsey, you've gone from data assistant to data manager in a really short time. So how have you managed it? I mean, how has the organisation supported that increase in responsibility and job scope?
Yeah, so I came into data assistant without any data skills really, apart from some basic ones from my degree. And there were courses within the NHS that you could do. I think it was Stats for the Terrified, and it just gave a basic overview of some stats. And there are other courses that are offered and that I was either made aware of and booked on by my team. And then one of my managers let me know about the Data Skills for Work, and that was how I got funding to do a PDA in data science. So that really gave me the skills to learn how to use Python for data analysis, data wrangling, data cleaning. It made me like my problem solving skills a lot better, my critical thinking a lot better. And it just made me, want to push myself. And when a position within my team for data manager became available, I applied and was successful. And even since that promotion, I have been on other courses, or even just like short webinars that have been put on by organisations. The Data Lab's a really good source. NHS Scotland, the government as well, they put on various webinars too. So there's tons of resources out there. It can be quite mind-blowing how much people want to be helping others, but it's really good and supportive that everybody wants to learn and wants to share in your education as well.
Oh, yeah, see that's really brilliant. So, and building your networks and a professional reputation is really important, because that's the way you find out what's going on and what you need to know. And as I said before, all of our panelists today are members of the Data Lab community, and there's over 3,000 members in that community from Scotland and recently from across the world. So the power of networks is important and will help you. So just, Ruth, you touched on this a bit earlier about opportunities to collaborate and share learnings with others. Have you got, can you share some of your experience of how, or give us specific examples of collaborations within the organisation or externally?
Yeah, so within the organisation, my role is quite good in that sense, in that I have one foot between two different teams, and then it's part of my role to input into development projects which are happening across the organisation. So I'm in quite a lot of meetings where a lot of different people from different departments are in. So that's a really good opportunity for me to meet and talk to and understand the issues that other people within the organisation are having. So that's quite a formal setting within my role, but also just understanding and speaking to other people within your organization is really important and useful. And before COVID, like, I knew who my office buddies were, and I knew who that person was in the office that knew everything about everything. It's a bit different now that we're all sort of in a remote capacity, but there are still tools that I use, like Yammer is really good for like breaking those silos which can be set up on Teams channels, and also volunteering for things within your organization, like maybe being a rep for a union or something, could be another way to raise your profile and talk to people that you might not necessarily be exposed to in your day-to-day work. You talked about sharing and information sharing across groups, and I found that can be as easy as a good Teams post in the right channel. If you found something out, or maybe you found a training avenue that Kelsey was talking about, if you can just put it in a Teams channel and you can say, I found this really useful, because then you can get a really good discussion going, and that helps build relationships remotely, which I found really valuable. I've spoken about networking outside of your organization, so I won't rehash it too much, but going to webinars, going to events in your sector, being part of those membership organizations like we're doing today is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. So we haven't really talked about what daily life is like in the public sector, and obviously there's 22% of the Scottish workforce working in the public sector, there will be no one pattern. But Neha, can you just give us a quick sort of run through of what your daily life is like? Are you structured to deal with your own tasks, or do you work with round priorities?
More or less, my week looks structured. There are established ways to perform a certain job responsibilities throughout the week. But as a data analyst, we deal with very complex data and complex information, and things may not sail smoothly as we would think initially. So it might take iterations of it might indulge into iterations of coding that we have done, and a lot of validation that needs to be done before I interpret the thing. And that might not, or may go beyond the time you have planned for that activity. But overall, it is structured and you have to prioritize your work. But there can be instances where there can be a very urgent work that they need to make decisions. So you have to prioritize that work as well. But overall, it is structured, and in an unstructured way, where you do the coding, and when you do code, it can be like you just can't code one time and expect the correct answer. You have to have some iterations of it, and you can't actually give a particular time to it. Apart from that, your meetings and deadlines, they are similar to other job roles. So, yeah.
I know it all changes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So Alice, how would, there must be a huge number of jobs available in Scottish Government. How do people go about finding them?
So I think definitely the Data Lab community have got a job board, and I've had a quick look before this just to see because there's some jobs that I'm aware of being advertised in the government at the moment, and they're all on there. And there's other jobs in other, organisations as well. So it's a great place for everything in the kind of one area. So I think this is more generally, but when I was kind of looking for roles, I used civil service jobs. If that's something you're interested in, if you're interested in civil service, then you can set up email alerts on there, which I found really interesting, useful, sorry. And you can put in keywords. So for example, like the government are advertising for senior assistant statisticians at the moment, which is like a generic job role. There's more than one post available. But like all of those posts could be slightly different. So it's not always, you're not always going to be, a data scientist isn't going to be the job title, but the job might involve some of that. So I think using keywords is really a good way to kind of catch lots of different things. I think as well, location. So obviously things have changed a bit since COVID, that there's more kind of hybrid working, and with the civil service especially, there's a lot more jobs that are based in England in departments in the UK government rather than Scottish government. There's quite a lot that say remote or might say, can be flexible. I would suggest, it's always worth contacting the person and asking them. The job that I'm in at the Scottish Government just now was advertised for Edinburgh, but I live in Glasgow, so I sent them an email. I was like, is it worth me applying? Because, I don't live in Edinburgh, and I really, my priority was I didn't want to travel from Glasgow to Edinburgh 5 days a week. So I wanted to know if it was going to be realistic or not. And yeah, they said, yeah, of course, apply. You'll maybe need to come to Edinburgh once a month or something. So, don't rule things out based on that. Kind of get in touch with people and ask questions. I think, but yeah, the Data Lab job board is where it's at, obviously.
Oh, that's great advice and a good shout out. So here I've got a sort of quick fire round of questions. Ruth, 3 things you wish you'd known at the beginning of your career that would have made things easier for you?
So knowing that I might have skills and knowledge outside of work. So for example, I taught a bit of yoga during my PhD, so that gave me a really good public speaking voice at the time. I'm a bit out of practice now.
Yeah.
Also, don't be afraid to chip in meetings. Your insights are useful, and even if you're just supporting someone else's opinion that's getting absolutely steamrollered by 3 other voices, that's still valuable. And also learning how to apply for public sector jobs, understand the STAR approach, understand that you need a STAR for each of the competencies. If you miss out one of the competencies, then they can't score you against it and you won't get an interview. Understanding that a lot of the jobs in the public sector get offered internally. So maybe if the job isn't quite right for you, but you like the organisation, you could still get that job and then move internally. So understanding how that works, I think, would have helped my transition into the organisation with fewer applications.
Oh, thank you. That's really useful. Alice, 3 things that people should consider. What will help them get to the top of that pile, that application pile of this?
Yeah, so I think Ruth has touched on it. Applying for public sector jobs is a real skill. It's very specific process. I've only ever worked in the public sector, but other people tell me it's very specific and different to other sectors. So it's kind of learning how to do that. If you know somebody who works in the public sector, regardless of where, talk to them because they'll know. 3 things, I think. Read the instructions for the application very carefully. If they ask for a CV and a personal statement, submit both. Don't just say, all my information's in the CV. Give them what they ask for. use STAR that Ruth mentioned. So that's situation, task, action, result. Use that kind of structure to answer questions in your application, but also in the interview. Like often your interviewers will be sitting with like an actual tick the box. They said that, they covered that. Like make it's really formulaic, but that's what they're expecting. That's what they want. It makes their lives easier. And also prepare examples for your interview ahead of time. That's really helped me in kind of recent interviews. A lot of public sector jobs, it will be like competency-based interviews. So they'll say, tell me about a time when. If you've got like a few like really solid examples of things you've done, your experience that have like, you know, keywords for different competencies they're going to ask you about, and have those kind of examples structured in the STAR approach and have them there. You're allowed to refer to things, as far as I'm aware, for the jobs I've applied for. Then that will really help you in the interview as well.
Thank you. Neha, key skills for success as a data scientist in the public sector. Can you give me a couple, or 3 is the magic number?
Well, I would say 3 will be very less. That you need to have some skills to be a data analyst, irrespective of any sector, be it private or public. So apart from technical skills like SQL, R, Python, you have to have the soft skills. So your logical reasoning, critical thinking, effective communication plays a vital role, especially in the public sector, because it's a big organization and knowledge is out there. And especially like I was an outsider and the domain was different as well. So I asked a lot of questions, and the appropriate question to appropriate people will give you appropriate answer. And I think that is very important. And then the other thing, the most important thing I think is never shy away from learning any new skill or any course or any tool. Just don't get overwhelmed with. If you have done one, you are able to do the other one. It's just a difference of code or difference. It's just your thinking what takes you ahead. So just be open and embrace all the new technologies. That's it. Thank you.
Kelsey, I mean, you've come a long way in a really short time, and you've obviously learned a lot, and I'm really impressed by that. What are you most proud of?
I think it's just that. I think it's the amount that I have grown in such a short space of time. You know, coming without any data skills and then doing one course, and then, you know, learnt Python, and then I sort of pivoted into R because that is where the public sector is sort of going. Python is important, but R is the bigger one. So yeah, it's just sort of having the ability to look back at where you started and going, wow, okay, I've actually achieved quite a lot, even though it seems like such a short space of time. So yeah, just taking that opportunity to acknowledge that success and that growth, and the networking as well. You know, like I'm very fortunate to have a really supportive team, and I think that's more or less standard across the public sector, because we're all trying to, you know, improve people's lives, the environment, and we're all striving towards a common goal as well. So it's really nice to work with other like-minded people too. Yeah.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Before we throw open to the audience, I've just got one last question, and I'm going to start with you, Kelsey. Where will we be in 10 years' time?
I honestly have no idea. I hate thinking that far ahead in the future. But maybe within a year's time, I might have learned, you know, maybe some data governance. There was the data standards community that I'm now part of, and would like to get a little bit more intel about that. Yeah, I think just to keep growing and keep networking as well, because, you know, even a year ago, I'm meeting new people all the time. Yeah.
Perhaps 10 years is a bit too much, so I'll just revise. I'll just bring that down. Alice, 5 years' time, where do you think? Do you think you'll still be in the public sector?
Yeah, I'm similar to Kelsey. Like I said earlier, don't really know didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I'm still quite open to who knows where I'll be in that time. But yeah, I think I would still like to be in the public sector. I'd still like to be in a technical role. I think in some areas, you know, the technical parts, as you move up the ladder, technical part of your job gets less and management gets more. I would like to try and cling on to a technical role. I don't know, I don't know, I might have kids, and I think being in the public sector means, like, I'm not worried about that. I can maybe go part-time, I can maybe be flexible. I think that's really important. And with the public sector, I'm not worried about that. So I don't know, who knows? But yeah, hopefully still in the public sector, definitely.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think these sorts of, you know, life balance is a really important decision. It's good to be clear about what you're looking for in terms of life balance. Ruth, same question. 5 years, can reduce it if you like. 2?
Yeah, five years is better. I also don't really like to plan too far ahead, but I am really enjoying my time at Nature Scott, and I've struggled to find somewhere where I fit in. Not fit in because I've done really well in all of my jobs, but somewhere where I feel like I could stay. And Nature Scott, I don't know, I just gel with the people there, so that is super, super helpful. So I don't know exactly what my role will look like in 5 years' time, but I can still see myself being an integral part of the Nature Scott team. And maybe that'll involve moving up, but then that's also, as what Alice was alluding to, you know, there's management vs technical trade-offs with that. So, you know, I might be on a different project or still doing the same thing, but no matter what happens, I will still be learning. So in 5 years' time, there will always be another thing to learn. There'll always be something else to get to grips with. So I foresee even at retirement, there will still be new things to learn. So that's never anything that stops.
Yes, yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, especially in the you know, the area that we're all working in, things are changing at a rate of knots. Neha, will the HEPMA project be finished in 5 years' time?
I don't think so. It is a mega project, and it is not definitely going to stop, but obviously it will expand, and my position will always be there, and I'm quite confident about it. But planning for 5 years, I think if you plan, sometimes your plan doesn't happen as you think it would be. So my mantra is open to opportunities. Just open and embrace every opportunity that comes your way, and you would never know where will you land up. So I'm not very particular that I will stay with public or will jump into private. I will just keep my things open, and the most important thing I think and I believe is just keep learning. So if I feel I've been stagnant in this position, which I'm not at the moment, and I don't think in the coming future it will be, because there's a lot of chance for me to grow. Or any person who's working in my position has a lot of chance to grow. But if in coming years, if I feel my position, I've learned everything and I'm not getting as much as I would like to, then I might need to think to jump into any other project, maybe different sector. I don't know, but I'll keep things open.
Oh, thank you. Some great thoughts here. I'd just like to open to everyone in the audience, if you'd like to give our fantastic panel some questions, or technical, career orientated, anything. If you want to raise your hand, or you can just put your screen on and come on and give your questions yourself. As I said at the beginning, this session is one of a series of employability events talking about data and AI across the sectors, and the next one will be the 30th of August, which will be data and AI in the third sector. So, you know, I've just got one question about networks. So we're all on the community. Do you know each other? Have you met each other? Have you come across each other in the community?
I don't think so, no.
No. But yeah.
I think an event like this is great though, to
Yeah,
now that I know
yeah.
I know your names, and yeah, I think for being in the data lab community as well, you see names and faces of people who are posting, and you might not have spoken to them directly before, but you never know when you might need to. So yeah, it's nice to see everybody's faces and know names so that you never know, might come knocking.
Well, I think events like these are particularly helpful because, I mean, you are all doing the job. And I think sometimes, especially for students, that leap, that movement from being a student, and I think you touched on it, Neha, you know, the data sets are, you know, that they're not exactly the same. Just that meeting people that have been through your journey, I think is really supportive and helpful. So we do have one question here. And it's about how your organisations have shifted their approach to flexibility since the pandemic. Have they been quick to adapt or more reluctant? So I don't know who would like to take that one. Alice, I think you talked on it a little bit. You're talking about life-work balance. And
yeah. So I joined Scottish Government during it was 2021, so it was during COVID. But it's similar to PHS as far as I'm aware. So yeah, at the moment, we're all still working at home. The offices are open. We can go in as much or as little as we like. There's no commitment. I think I'm sure that might vary across organisations, but the Scottish Government, that's how it is at the moment. And they've said there's not going to be a commitment in the next year or two, I think. And yeah, I feel, you know, we're all so used to it now. I find there's been lots of benefits to my kind of health by working at home more, and I've really appreciated that and enjoyed it. Like, I'm thinking I'll probably be able to get a dog at some point. Probably couldn't have done that before. Things like that. So yeah, I think as well about like quick to adapt or more reluctant. They've been really quick and flexible and kind of just like laid back about it. They've not been forcing anybody to do anything they're not comfortable with, especially when the pandemic was still ongoing. But yeah, I don't know, it might differ in other places.
so someone has their hand up. Is it you, Thomas? Would you like to come on and give your question? I don't know. We've also got a question from Immaculada. She's just saying it's great to see people that are happy with their job, which it is, which we are, all of us. What would you say is the most tricky part or the part you least enjoy about your job? So we'll throw that to you, Kelsey.
The bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of red tapes. You have to do everything sort of by the book. Don't get me wrong. I think because, you know, coding, you can go wild with that a little bit, you know, it's problem solving. But, you know, you have to be aware of, for me, it's patient confidentiality. So, you know, electronic records, things like that. And I imagine there'll be similar things in the government. So you have to make sure you're doing things by the book. Yeah.
And I expect that's where the data governance issues or interest comes in, because that's such an important aspect of everything that we do. Neha, are these, Jen's asking, are these NSC? Oh, I'm trying to read the rest of it. About the NS. Oh, the questions are coming fast and furious. All right, here's a really good question. I think the other one has already been answered. What's the influence of AI on data roles in your areas, Ruth?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it's something we're kind of, I think it's fair to say we're just kind of getting to grips with it. To give a very specific example, in machine learning, we're kind of exploring. So Nature Scot are involved in a project which involves the Scottish Association for Marine Science and some other groups as well. I think SEPA is involved, and it's trying to look at So when we collect data of the seabed, we'll put a video down and we'll tow it behind a boat, so it'll create a video file. And somebody needs to go and watch that and identify each species that they see, and then mark down whether it's a protected one or an annex one, and then mark down what habitat it is. And that's a lot of work, and it takes a long time, and we might come up with like a terabyte's worth of data in one trip, and it's just a lot. So the scientists are looking at developing machine learning models to see if we can automatically identify protected species from these video files, and we're not quite there yet, but it's looking incredibly promising, and that would really free up a lot of resource in our teams and allow us to drive a lot more value from the data that we're collecting. So that's just one very specific example, and there are loads of others. So I think it's something that we're just kind of just touching the surface on, but something that can be incredibly valuable going forward.
Is there anything from your area, Neha?
I think HEPMA data is just in its initial phase. So to do anything related to machine learning and AI, we have to have a good database. I mean, not in the sense a good length of database, like from the past. And the hospitals are going just live right now. So in future, definitely I see AI and machine learning being involved in our day-to-day job, which will help us in the interpretation and the analysis we do to improve it. But yeah, definitely the project is thinking of going in that direction.
Thank you. Thomas, are you ready to ask your question? You can put your camera on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Sorry, my mic wasn't working before when you queued me in. My question was just for everyone, really. I was just wondering if have any of you made use of the upskilling fund to do any sort of short courses for yourself, if you were aware of that. Okay. I asked because I've used it quite a lot for myself recently, and I've recently secured a new job. I work for Aberdeenshire Council. I'm the team leader of a data and analytics team, and I recently did like 3 of them via the upskilling fund, like project management and leadership and things like that. And I think they probably helped me get the post. And I think probably something that from a recruitment point of view, I would also look for as well, because I think it shows your personal and professional development skills too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just add on to Thomas's bit? I think, yeah, definitely do any upskilling courses. And I was looking through some of the questions as well. And do the courses, but also do, any free sort of projects, like there's Kaggle or any other open source data, get it on GitHub, create a portfolio. You don't necessarily need to have a qualification. You just need to show the drive that you're keen to learn and that you're interested in, using your skills. So do the upskilling courses. If you can't get onto those, do it yourself. Use R, use Python. There's tons of free open software available, and data as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. One last question. It's just about mentoring. Are you panel members mentors on the Data Lab community? It's James is asking he's just asking if you're open to mentoring. No pressure.
No, I
You
am.
are.
I think
Yes,
yeah.
you are. Yeah. Brilliant. So, James, if you just go into the mentoring group, you will find people that have got the time and are available to mentor, and then hopefully you can find someone who's got the skill set that you're looking for or the experience. So we're actually out of time now, and I just would like to say on behalf of our audience, thank you to Alice, to Ruth, to Kelsey and Neha, because you've all brought a wealth of experience and you've so articulately described how you got to where you are, and you've been completely inspiring to me and to our audience. Thank you very much for sharing your time. It's really so helpful for us, and thank you very much everyone for participating and joining in, And Stephen has just sent me a wee message here, but I'm feeling a wee bit incompetent. I think I must be hungry now. So Stephen will be in touch if there's anything else to say. If not, please join us on the 30th of August for our next one of these fabulous sessions when we'll be hearing about data science and AI in the third sector. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.